Hi, this is Alan Wright from Zephyr Conferences. Welcome to week one of our 10-part video series on effective marketing for small food, wine, and beer companies. Today we'll talk about effective websites. So I'd like to first give you my credentials in terms of effective websites. I've been running my small company for 24 years, and we currently operate 10 active websites. 5 of these for our conferences, 1 for Zephyr Conferences as a whole, 3 for the 3 tour brands we run, and 1 for Zephyr United, which is the overall company brand. So we have a lot of experience with this, and I've been very involved with the creation of all those 10 and also the upkeep of them as well. I want to just preview this video and to let you know what we'll be talking about. First of all is determining your audience, or really what I would consider stakeholders. Number 2 is website design itself. Number 3 is your blog or news page, also content creation. And number 4 is search engine optimization. And this video is going to be relatively short and very focused on the marketing aspects of your website. So, starting off with determining your stakeholder, there are really 3: your business, your customer, and Google or other search engines. Most websites tend to treat their own business as their most important stakeholder. What does that mean? It means that websites are often focused on pushing out a marketing message, which is what the company wants to tell people. The problem with that is that that is not necessarily what your audience or your customer wants to hear. And if it's not, they're not going to pay attention. So what do companies want to talk about? Their new products, how great they are, things like that. That is an old school form of marketing, and it's an old school form of website design. Number 2, your second stakeholder is, of course, your audience or your customer. And to figure out what it is that they want, you need to figure out who that customer is. So it's very important to actually think about that. Who are the people who are buying your product? Who are the people who are coming to your website? Is it a 20-year-old guy, or is it a 55-year-old mom? Very different audiences, very different needs. Once you have figured out who it is and what they want, you can then write effectively for them. Number 3, the third stakeholder group, is Google or other search engines. And this is important for search engine optimization purposes. The beauty of having a customer-focused website rather than a company-focused website is that Google is very aligned with your readers. Google only wants to send people to websites that they like, that it meets their needs, so that they like the service that Google is providing. And so the great thing about these stakeholders is that your most important ones, which is your customer and your search engine, are also in alignment. So everything we're going to talk about in website design has to do with being customer focused and not company focused. So moving into the website design, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Everybody already has a website. And when you are going to recreate your website, you're probably going to work with a professional to some extent. So yes, branding's important. Yes, a logo's important. Colors are important. All that stuff. I'm not going to talk about all that because you're probably going to get some expert advice when you do recreate your website. I do want to talk about some basics though. Less is more. Less is more in terms of navigation, which is the first important thing to consider. Because a lot of people have too much complexity in their main menu, and that's not what consumers want to see. So reduce your main menu, and you can do that by adding a lot of links in the footer. Less is more too in terms of text, right? It's better to have more photos, more videos, more icons, more headers, and less straight text. That's a hard one for many people. That's a hard one for me. Our websites tend to be too text heavy because I like text. I like reading, and that's how I learn. But I'm a little old school in that, and so we attempt really to reduce the text, and you should too. Calls to action are important. And this is sort of the one area of the website where I think that it really is company focused, because those calls to action are for you. Buy our product, sign up for our newsletter, register for this event, right? So you do need calls for action, but they need to be calls for action of things that the customer wants, or obviously they're not going to click on it and not going to complete your call for action. Another important subject in website design is keeping it up to date. If you've got sections that require updating, like a calendar, like a news page, like an events page, then you need to keep them up to date. And if you can't, you should just not have them on your website. It looks better to have a simpler website without that than to have an out-of-date one. I want to talk about one more thing in terms of website design, and it's this concept called story brand. And I learned about this from Julia Hertz, ex of the Brewers Association, who now is doing her own consulting. And she told our conference last February, a year ago, that if we were to read one business book, we should read a book called Story Brand. I read it. I was so impressed. I made all my employees read it, and we have tried to create all our websites in line with the Story Brand pitch or theme. And what it is that you need to figure out what intrinsic motivation your customer has, what problem they have in achieving that, and how you can help. So, most wineries just want to sell their wine. Most customers love the association with a winery because it's romantic and sexy. And so if you're selling your wine and not that romantic and sexy association, you're probably off base. Let me give you an example. Our travelmontana.com website, it's our most recent website. The inspiration, the intrinsic need that people have is they want to have an amazing vacation. They want to have an amazing vacation every single year, and they constantly are having to plan them. The solution, as we present to them on our website, is Montana. And we go on to explain why that is. The hurdle people have in achieving that is that it's hard to plan a vacation to Montana, especially for people who are from the East Coast or South, a long way away, and have never been there and don't really know how to plan, especially, say, an outdoor vacation in Montana. And then we go on to explain, finally, how we can help them solve their problems to meet their needs, which is that intrinsic need to have an inspirational, outstanding vacation every year. So that's an example, and you can relate that to your business. And the way I would do that is go get that book, Story Brand. Moving on to the next section, the blog or news page, content creation. Again, only do this if you can keep it up. If you can't keep it up, it's not worth doing. Second, lower your bar. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to write poetry for your blog or your news page. In fact, I tell my employees that we should shoot for 7 minutes or less for every blog post. Is that realistic? No, it's not. But it's certainly a good goal. And that way you can crank out blog posts. And you can do this by a couple of hints. Good spelling and punctuation is important, or it will look bad on you. But you can write about things you know, so you're not having to just sort of research things. You can use photos and videos to explain so that you're not having so much text, and it doesn't have to be long to begin with. So lower your bar, get content up frequently. You do want to have frequent content, ideally once a week, at least every month, and better would be more often than that. You've got, again, those three audience. Who are you writing for? You're writing for yourself. Look how great our product is. Are you writing for your reader, or are you writing for Google, which happens to be more or less the same as your reader? So for a winery, here's a company-focused blog post. We just released our new 2020 Pinot Noir. That's something only of interest really to the company and those committed customers who are actually ready to purchase already. Here's a different one. Are wineries in the Willamette Valley struggling during a pandemic? Very specific to you, so you know the subject, but also of interest to readers probably. Here's one for breweries. Look how great our hazy IPA is. Instead, how about this? Why are hazy IPAs so popular? Or what is the most popular beer for 2021? Those are articles that actually people might look for and want to read. So when you're considering your audiences, write for your customer, and remember to write for Google as well, which happens to be the same thing. The way you can make Google pay attention is by focusing on the next subject, which is search engine optimization. So you start out by making sure you have a keyword phrase. We just talked about that sort of most popular beers of 2021 is a keyword phrase that people might be searching for. Then you need to use that keyword phrase in your title of your post, in your first paragraph, in at least one header, and try to be specific. Hazy IPAs is too broad. There are lots of people writing about hazy IPAs or wineries, way too broad, right? So you have to be more specific and see if you can get people looking for that subject who then will come to your site because they heard about it on Google or another search engine. Headers and bullet points are two other things you want to pay attention to, because Google wants to know that your posts and your website too, all your website pages are readable. You could have a ton of text with no paragraphs and no punctuation, right? No images, no headers, no bullet points. It would be terrible to read. Google doesn't want to send somebody to a site where they find it terrible to read. So they're looking for these things that they think increase readability. Headers, bullet points, paragraphs, things like that. Make sure you include them. Photos. They want to see at least one photo, and they want to see alt text in that photo, whichever software you're using for your website, WordPress, etc., are going to make it very easy for you to add an alt text that should be related to your keyword for that specific page and attached to the photo. Internal and external links. You should have at least one internal link to another page on your website and at least one external link to a related site, related to that page, not just your company. So if you're writing about hazy IPAs, you might link to the Brewers Association definition page on hazy IPAs. All this stuff that I've just talked about, you can learn about, and it will guide you through by getting a plugin on your WordPress site called Yoast SEO, and I highly recommend that. It's easy to use. It tells you when you still need to do something to make it more SEO friendly and when you've done it right. But the key is to post frequently on subjects of interest to your customers, and by definition also to Google. So that's a quick summary of effective websites for small businesses in the food, wine, and beer industry. I want to quickly summarize. Keep in mind your website is not for you. You're not putting it up there for you. You're putting it up there for your customer. And since Google tends to be aligned with your customer, then that strategy will help you with SEO, which means it'll help you getting more visitors to your website. I hope that helps. Next week, we'll be talking about conquering your local area, and we'll have a guest, Andrew from Secret Hopper. Thanks.